It's going to be tougher for me to do videos because there are a lot more people in the house now, and so I'm going to try to do videos when I can, where I can. I may change around locations a lot. I may have a lot of different times, but I'll try to figure it out as I go and what's the best time, what's the best location. Right now I'm good here. Okay, so last video I did general thoughts on Michael Moore's Capitalism, a Love Story, and in this one I want to give some specifics and specifically talk about, more specifically talk about problems that Michael Moore had with the current system and whether I really agree with them or whether I don't. He begins off with a comparison of the Roman Empire, present-day America. His three major parts of that is that in both places there was a huge disparity in wealth. The workers were basically slaves who had nowhere else to go, and the system, while it was originally ruled by law and not corrupt, became corrupt and is eventually evil, which would lead to its downfall. So I guess he's basically saying if America keeps going the way it's going to, that it's going to collapse like the Roman Empire. I wouldn't disagree. But the three major premises besides that, the disparity in wealth, the wage slavery, and that it was originally a good system, I would object to. Although not majorly with wage slavery, because I think based on a left libertarian analysis, and I'll probably link that in the description, but that's the state basically causes corporations to have a lot more power than they naturally would in a free market, and so they basically constrict the workers' choices into certain fields where they have to use their labor, and it's really hard to become self-employed and all that kind of stuff. So I think wage slavery exists in the current system, but only because the state exists, not because it happens within the marketplace, but it's caused by the state, in short. So I think he's right to point out states' wage slavery, that is. But I think that he probably would say it's a natural result of capitalism. He wouldn't say it's a natural result of the state. I'd say it's a natural result of state capitalism, but that'd be my qualm with that. And the comparison was mostly fair. I mean, America basically is an empire by now, with all the wars in the Middle East, all of the foreign bases, all the military in other countries. So I mean, it's pretty much an empire. I mean, Manifest Destiny pretty much cemented the fact that America was becoming an empire by spreading out west under the illusion that it was somehow America's destiny to conquer every single Native American land and Mexican territory and Spanish territory, etc. So I mean, there's a lot of similarities, and I think it's a good comparison, but I think it's also flawed. I mean, the disparity in wealth, again, he would probably link that to capitalism. I'd link that to the state. I think the political class only gets more wealthy, and the poor get poorer due to taxes and barriers to entry on the marketplace. So I mean, his comparison is fair, but like a lot of his movie, it misses out on a few important aspects, like the state. The new managerial aristocracy is a term that he comes up with, and I like it, but I don't think it's anything new. I think that the system was based on an aristocracy that was managing the lower class. George Washington and company was basically almost all owned slaves, all were white, old for the time, and land owning and wealthy. I mean, that's basically an aristocracy. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's a aristocracy. So I mean, it's nothing new. I mean, America's always been kind of controlled by a small group of powerful, wealthy people. I mean, that's what a government is. It's a small group of powerful, usually a small group of powerful and wealthy people. I mean, it's small in comparison to the overall population. You know, obviously there's a lot of people in government, but I mean, the organization itself, the main people are, you know, the president and the Congress. You know, they're small in comparison to the overall population. So that's what I mean. So byproducts for Moore is wealth disparity, corporate privilege, eviction of poor families, workers suffering for management faults, an increase in war, and I'll get into some other stuff later in the video. But I want to start off with wealth disparity. Again, going back to this, due to all the tax breaks for the corporations, for the rich, and all of the privileges that they get, and all of the, you know, all the sort of benefits that the poor get, but while they don't really help them, and I'll probably link a description to how the state actually doesn't really help the poor that much. It's a good essay by Charles Johnson called Scratching By, and I don't remember the rest of the title, but I'll link it once I find it. And but that sheds a lot of insight on why there's so much wealth disparity in the state, in a statist society, which I don't have enough time to really get into. But I mean, I've already basically outlined why. It's because of all the barriers to entry, the tax breaks for the rich, all the privileges, which goes into the next thing, corporate privilege. Corporate privilege and evictions of poor family both contribute to wealth disparity. They're all kind of linked up to the current system. And Moore, again, equates it to capitalism, which he says is a system of giving and taking, but mostly taking. And I think that's a really absurd definition, but it's what he wants to use. And within that context, obviously, these things fall under taking. Corporate privilege comes from the state, and so it seems odd to me that he criticizes the corporations, but he never criticizes the state, which created corporations in the late 1800s, and so they could have more capital and stuff like that. So evictions of poor families is also a byproduct of the system, and happens pretty often, as Moore points out. And again, it goes back to wealth disparity and corporate privilege. And also something interesting was dead peasants, which is something that that was in the movie. It was a policy that Walmart and other companies took out on their employees, and it was basically to say that if they died, they get a large check from the bank that they submitted to, and that they would get the money. So the people didn't know about it, and the corporations were basically making money off of dead people, or people who died that worked for them. So pretty sick stuff. Which brings me to sort of the sickness of statism and the byproducts of all of it, and I mean, why basically this is all byproduct of statism. It's not exactly capitalism. I mean, it depends on what you define as capitalism. Capitalism for me is a system where a small group owns property, and you can either own it through, or in the workplace specifically, capitalism means a small group of a managerial class, not necessarily illegitimate, but they own the capital, and they either get it from the state or they actually get it from, you know, the sweat of their brow and the breaking of their back, blah blah blah. And then, but the sickness of statism mostly goes to all these byproducts that I've talked about that really happen because the state controls the means of production, and most people call that socialism, but it's not really for the society's benefit that the state does it. It's for a small group of people in the workplace who own the means of production, who are capitalists. So it's state capitalism. It's a mixed economy. It's state capitalism and state socialism. I'm sure, you know, in before semantics, we're gonna get into big semantical debate. And then lastly, I'm going to link a video about how the free market was framed for this whole corporate bailouts and the banks and all that kind of stuff. And Jacob Spinney, he's pretty good. He's like an anarcho-capitalist, and he talks about how the free market was framed, and deregulation is something Moore talks about, and that he says is the problem. I don't really think deregulation is the problem. Look at the airports, and I'll probably do a link to deregulation in the airports, and that's only caused more people to be satisfied with the product that they actually get from the airports, and makes it less bureaucratic, less centralized, more easy to compete. I think, just as Jacob Spinney does, that the free market was framed, and he swiftly, basically, he outlines a defense of the free market that I think is really good, and I believe I have it favorited too, or I at least liked it, but I remember really liking it, and I'm going to link it in the description, and hopefully that'll clear up, that the free market really didn't have anything to do with the bailouts or the economy failing. Alan Greenspan had nothing to do with the free market. He was a state capitalist through and through. But I'm not going to get into Alan Greenspan. I just sort of wanted to touch on that for a second. And so in the next one, I'm going to talk about more solutions and what problems I have with those. But overall, Moore has some good problems. I agree wage slavery exists. There's big wealth disparity. But I don't agree that the system was originally good. I think if you have a state-controlled society, it's inherently bad because it forces certain beliefs on the populace and basically holds them at the barrel of a gun through taxation, and basically keeps the poor down instead of what it says it does, which keeps which is supposed to keep the classes not so divided, but and in fact, the state basically enhances class warfare. So that's about it. In the next video, I'll talk about more solutions and what problems I have with that, and then probably tomorrow I'll get into where all these problems come from that I have with Moore, and why we're having why Moore and I have a few similarities, but at the same time we have a few big differences too. So I'll try to get into that and try to outline that pretty well. I didn't really have a script for this. I just had an outline, and I just kind of reference it every now and then. That's why I had my head down for certain points. And so that's about it. Hope you enjoyed.